What's up guys, it's Nick here at Gemini Exotics. We're back with another episode. Today is another Sunday Q&A, back at it with another question. Today's question is, what are some crested gecko safe plants? So today we're going to be covering crested geckos, different sorts of New Caledonian geckos like the Leachianus and the Chihuahua gecko, and other sorts of semi-arboreal lizards as well as some amphibians. Let's get into it. So here we have one of my favorites to put in with geckos. Some of the heavier bodied geckos, like this chubby thing here, as well as some Leachianus geckos, tokay geckos, different sorts of heavier bodied semi-arboreal geckos. This is Sansevieria, also known as snake plant, mother-in-law's tongue, harpy string plant. It goes by a bunch of different names, but it's super sturdy and it grows relatively thick and tall. You can kind of see up there that I've had to cut it back a little bit just because it started to outgrow and actually bend across to the cage. But geckos like Stitch here and like Athena love to absolutely hide and climb on it, and I will attach a photo of Athena just chilling on some in a second. Then we have a newly added one, at least from what I started to do. In the back here we have peace lily. Now the stems don't get too thick, so they don't necessarily support the animal, but if you have them draped over woods and stuff like that, it allows them like shade almost. It allows a cave kind of thing that allows some shade and allows some comfortability for them. And if you've had them long enough, you get this pretty white flower. So this is up in Athena's cage, and like I said, they don't get too thick, but the leaves will bunch up, will provide a good bit of shade, especially when they drape over things. Now they're super cool. A little bit of different coloration, leaf pattern, stem structure to give a little bit of variance. And in terms of color, up next we have one of my favorites. I'm probably going to say that a lot, but here we have your croton. Now these things get large, and I actually had to take one of them out of Stitch's enclosure just because it was getting up to the top here. The leaves were kind of misshapen because they were pressed up against the glass, but it looked wonderful. It looked so amazing just because it added that little splash of color, and Stitch was able to hide right in the leaves, and I will post a photo of that as well. Another one that's pretty popular to use, newly added to my vivariums, is the Pothos Golden Devil's Ivy. That goes by a whole sorts of different names, and it will absolutely take over your tank. I started this particular plant with one leaf, and you might be able to see in here, let's get that leaf out of the way. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 4 leaves on it right now, and this plant is probably a few months old. But if we come down here, check out Stitch's tank. I actually had to pull out a bunch of this just because it was kind of blocking some of the other foliage, and it was blocking the light so it wouldn't grow properly. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 leaves on this, and this will continue to grow, and eventually, depending on how you have your vivarium set up, it'll produce aerial roots so it can attach itself to woods like that if you have them close by. I personally do not, but it is a possibility. And while we're in this tank, check this little guy out. So this is a bromeliad. This is also another safe plant. People often use these for dart frogs. I, however, used it for this particular tank just to add a bit of splash of color. So the cool thing about bromeliads is they actually hold water in their little, let's see if we can't focus on that. There it is. They hold water in there. So if you water them up real nice, the gecko will be able to drink out of it. And they come in a different variety of colors. This one particular I think is a fireball. But if we come over here, we have Lucky Charm. This one is probably one of my favorite bromeliads that I have just because it's huge. Here is a Hannibal Lecter Neurogalia. And then we have, I don't know which one that is in the back there. But they come in all sorts of different colors, flavors. They are pretty cool, they're pretty versatile. And the cool thing is they're actually epiphytes, so they will grow on almost anything. They don't require soil. And here we have a, well, let's focus here. Here we have your, what you call it, Wandering Jew, Tradescantia zebrina. This is the purple Wandering Jew species. It comes in a different variety of colors, but again, I like this just because it provides a different splash of color. I mean, look at that. That purple is incredible. So this is a trailing vining plant. It'll absolutely take over as well. So if you want that splash of color, if you want a bunch of coverage, this is another plant for you. It's pretty durable. If you pluck off a leaf, you pluck off a stem, put it in soil, it'll pop right back up. It's nearly indestructible. And while we're over here, probably my all-time favorite plant, I spent years looking for this, relatively cheaply, mind you. But here we have Monstera deliciosa with a brand new leaf. This plant will get relatively large. I've seen them relatively huge. They're also known as the Swiss cheese plant, just because when they get large enough, the leaves get striations. They kind of like get cuts in them, and I mean, they get massive. They're gonna get bigger than the elephant ear over there. Another safe plant, but I do want to caution you, just because they can get large and outgrow your tank, or they can become stunted. Either or, I personally just want to see it grow, use it as a house plant, and potentially use it to take photos of the animals. Now, forgive me for the lighting. I don't have any light in this corner over here, but this is a Alocasia poly. This is a elephant ear. I wanted to say African elephant, but I don't think it has a particular elephant species that it is. But this plant is amazing. As you can kind of see here, the leaves are relatively big. I mean, check that out. So this plant will do wonders in larger vivariums, and I can't emphasize that. I mean, this stalk here is about 2 foot tall, and the second tallest vivarium, or the tallest vivariums that I have, is 2 foot tall. So I personally do not have this in there, but when I do take them out, I like to take photos on this. The stalks are thick, the leaves are broad, and it just gives it a little bit something extra. I have seen people keep these in with dart frogs, or they're more tropical vivariums, but I personally just think it's gonna outgrow the tank, and I don't wanna have to mess with it. This plant right here, this whole bunch, is probably 3 years old, and we got a few new plants from corns. So I'm hoping to not touch this too much, to potentially plant it in a greenhouse just to see how big it can get. Now, this is just a impromptu list that I like to use. There's definitely a bunch of different things that you can use, so don't limit yourself to just this list. Do a little bit of research, see what you like. Look for that different splash of color, because I am actually looking for more plants that I can add to Stitch's enclosure, just so it's not all green. Unfortunately, I did redo her cage recently just because that croton was absolutely massive. It was taking over, and I wanted to redo it a little bit. Actually, the croton is right there. Look at that beauty. So if you guys enjoyed this video, and if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content. Also, if you are interested in helping support me, I did recently start a Patreon channel, and I will link that down in the comments section down below.